Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Goaltending, where your why is bigger than your excuses. Today, I'm going to take you to camp, and I'll tell you what I mean by that here in a second. But first, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in, allowing me to be a part of your journey, and really just all of the love, support, comments, shares, every way in which you get involved means the world. I got involved with doing this podcast a little over a year and a half ago now, and I found so much fulfillment in being able to just connect incredible people, incredible stories, life lessons, and get them to you to help you in your journey, in your life. It's been an outstanding ride so far. I love doing this. And so thank you so much just for allowing me to be a part of your life in some way, to take some of the lessons from these episodes and apply them and start taking action to improve your life, to reach your goals. And with that, I want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors, Prepping with Peppers. Right now, they're running a 20% off discount code for new customers. Just provide the code HEALTH20. That's HEALTH 20 for 20% off for new customers. And now let's get right into it. So this past week, I had the incredible opportunity to volunteer at a youth camp, at a camp here in Kentucky. And I was pretty nervous going into it. I haven't been to a camp since the summer after my 6th grade year. So that feels like a lifetime ago in itself. I had no idea what to expect. I've never been on the side of the house where I'm actually volunteering and being a leader at the camp. So no idea what to expect, a little bit of nervousness, not knowing, what kind of attitude the kids will bring, anything like that. So it required me to step out of my comfort zone a little bit. We'll just say that. But ultimately, we did a ton of just extremely fun and sometimes activities that made everyone maybe a little uncomfortable, or that required people to face a fear or step outside of, the norms of what they're accustomed to. And that made it so much more just fun and enlightening, and it created a lot of opportunity for lessons to be learned. And so my favorite thing about camp was that after each activity, the camp counselors, the people that actually worked the camp, they would stop and have a conversation about the activity and then ask, how does that apply to life? How can you apply this in your journey? And so I just want to share some of the lessons that I actually took away from camp, some of the things that we discussed, because they were so valuable. And the group that I led was a group of 13 to 15-year-old boys, and they were hearing a lot of this information for the first time. You may be too. But it was so invaluable that I just felt it necessary to just have a conversation about it, share some of these tips, and get your feedback. So tell me what you think after you listen through this, on if you've heard these type of tips before, if you haven't, how you're going to start applying them to your journey. So what I'll do is I'm going to go through each of the activities in order, and I'll talk through just the same way that we did. After we do an activity, we talk about what it is. And so the first activity we did was called Dangle Duo. Now, when I just saw this on the schedule, there was no description, nothing to tell me what this is. And so I was like, what in the world is Dangle Duo, right? But I'm like, we're going to show up. Let's approach this with an open mind. So we meet the camp counselor that takes us out here, and we're hiking out into the woods. And eventually we get to just a really about 30 to 35 foot high rope ladder. I would say that each of the steps on the ladder were maybe 5 to 6 feet wide. And you're talking about like maybe a 4x4 piece of wood for the step. And then there's about 4 to 5 feet in between each of the steps. And so this is just this tall rope ladder, and you actually have to hook up to a harness to even climb it. So what you do is you climb this rope ladder 2 people at a time, And because it's a rope ladder, it's swinging, it's moving, and two people are going at the same time. So it requires a lot of balance. And so a lot of people struggled, but everybody in our group that went for it made it to the top. So I was extremely proud of that everybody put the harness on. Everybody, some people were afraid of heights, but they still went for it anyway and made it to the top. And it does require a lot of teamwork and communication and balance. And so after we completed it, the question was, all right, what did you all just do? Obviously, I just explained what it is, and we worked together as a team to climb the ladder. But then how do you apply that to life? In life, first off, things are constantly moving, just like the ladder. And things require a certain level of balance to be able to continue to progress. And in many cases, when you use your people around you, when you use teammates, when you work as a collective, it makes it a little bit easier to balance, to move up, to progress. And then the next thing is, as people moved up, as you get to the next step, you still need to reach back and help the next person. And so while it's a physical metaphor and we're actually doing this, it was so relevant in terms of, wow, like when people actually work together, when you're not just worried about getting yourself up, but you're worried about helping the next person, and not for anything in return, but because you want to help them succeed. And when you're doing that with no expectation, they are helping you in return, naturally. And in every case, each of the groups made it to the top by working together, by reaching back. But what happened when there were groups that were like, oh, I'm going to try to go for this myself, right? So they just try to jump to the next step and jump to the next step. Well, what happened is they weren't communicating with their teammate. Because the ladder was moving and shaking, they would find themselves like just grabbing and grasping to the next step, trying to pull themselves up and struggling to move forward. And because they wanted to hold it all to themselves, they wanted to go for it themselves. They thought, I'm strong enough, I'm capable enough to just do this. And while there are people who were able to make steps without help, it was much harder. And so that was an incredible lesson in itself, just to really see teamwork at its finest and the working together without expectations, reaching back to help others up once you progress. All of that, I was like, okay, this is a great start to camp, right? So then later that evening, our next activity was hiking. And I'm not thinking like, okay, there's like a big life lesson we're taking away from hiking. I'm like, it's just nice to go hiking and enjoy nature and just be present in the moment and enjoy just nature around us, right? So we go hiking. It was a very short hike, maybe a mile and a half. Nothing crazy. But on the hike, there was a waterfall that we saw. We saw the sunlight shining through the trees. There were interesting looking mushrooms on the ground. You could feel a breeze in the air. Maybe a few just random different kinds of animals that we saw. And as we get through the hike, we're all kind of, joking around, just walking through the woods, casual conversations. And we get to the end. And our camp counselor, once again, he's like, all right, what did you all see out there? And so I just listed a few of the things that we saw on the journey. And it's like, okay, well, the sun is a representation of life, of giving life. And mushrooms are a sign of decay and rot, which is also a part of life, that things die and decay. And so, but a big point was to notice the things around you as you're going through your journey. Like life is just one big hike. And you can choose to just stumble through and not notice the things around you, not notice the beauty of life and the sunshine in the trees and the grass and whatever it is, the natural resources around you. You can choose to fumble through and not notice all of the beauty and all of the great things going on. Or you can focus on it being a hard climb, or that you're going uphill, or that you tripped over a stick, or whatever it is. You can look for the negatives. And so I really just thought it was a great reminder that while we were going, because we didn't know that we're going to have this conversation afterwards, we're not necessarily being hyper focused on noticing the beauty around us. It wasn't until after, when he asked the question, that we were challenged to think back to what did we see? What were the things that stood out in our minds from that height? And so as you go through your journey in life, don't forget to just look around, appreciate the things around you, notice the beauty in your environment, find the things to be grateful for, because life is just one big hike. All right, so the next thing is we did some field games, which as we're going out, they're like, we have hundreds of games you can choose from. What do you all want to do? And we really wanted to keep it open-ended. So we were like, why don't you tell us, like, what are some fun things for a group of 13 to 15-year-old boys, And so they're throwing out some games. We did a few different things, but there's one that just really, really stood out to me as having an incredible lesson that we discussed afterwards. And it was called the helium hula hoop. And so we had 8 people circle around a hula hoop. And you have to put your fingers parallel to the ground and set the edge of the hula hoop on top of your fingers. You're not allowed to like hook or grab or use your whole hand. You're just using your pointer fingers, and you have them parallel with the ground the whole time. All 8 people have to have their fingers touching the hula hoop, and you lower it to the ground together as a team. Now we're back to the teamwork thing, right? And communication. But ultimately, as you start to go down, it becomes very hard. It feels like the hula hoop is literally floating off of your fingers. It feels like there's helium in the hula hoop, but there's not. It's just a natural hula hoop. As we stood there, every time we started going down, somebody's fingers would come off. And if your fingers come off, you start back over at the top, and you're starting at chest level. And so we kept trying and communicating, and other people started to say, hey, like, you're going too fast, or you're going too slow. Your fingers are coming off. Like, hey, do this. And really noticing everything around them and giving direction and guidance and pointing all of these things out. And I'm like, wow, this is great. We're communicating, right? And so we come up with another innovation. We're like, okay, we're trying to get this to the ground, and it's not happening. And so we're like, okay, we have to start at chest height, but it doesn't say where the rest of our body has to be. So we get down on our knees to close the distance for our starting point. So we're starting closer to the ground already. So we start off on our knees, and we're still trying to lower, and we're still struggling to get this thing to the ground. And we're only like maybe 2 feet away from the ground. And as we get close to time, we finally come to the innovation of thinking outside of the box of, hey, we just have to be at chest height. Why don't we lay flat on the ground, put our chest on the ground, and that way we're starting already finished. And so we did complete the exercise, but in a very outside of the box way. I don't know if it really counts or not. And as we stepped away from that, the communication aspects came out. People talked about how they noticed things in the people around them. But the really big takeaway was that a lot of people were externally focused. Very few people looked at what they were doing wrong or how they could help, other than looking for what others were doing wrong and trying to tell them what to fix. Have you ever done that in life? Like it can be hard to notice in the moment, but it's very easy for us to get caught in just having an external focus and noticing the negative and putting that out there and notice what everybody else is doing wrong. But it's a lot harder to see and recognize when there is something that we need to improve, when there's something that we're doing wrong. And so what was happening is, there was one person, and it looked like, it just looked like they kept dropping their fingers too fast, right? And so the hula hoop kept levitating over their fingers, and we're like, you got to get your fingers on it. And as they're trying to come up, their finger just stays off of it the whole time. And after a little bit, I was like looking around the circle and just thinking through maybe a little bit of physics, but I was like, I don't think it's that he's going down too fast. It's that by the person across from him that was giving him direction, by him going down too fast, that was causing the hula hoop to angle up, which was pulling it off of the other person's fingers that we thought was going down too fast. So really, that's that other people were going down too fast, and it was causing the hula hoop to go up for him. But everybody just saw the hula hoop coming off of his fingers, and so they were directing him on what he needed to do instead of looking at what they were doing to cause that effect. And so that in itself was just an incredible lesson and takeaway in, I don't think it can be said enough, the importance of just looking internally when you work as a team instead of always looking at what other people are doing wrong or what other people need to do better. Just look at how can you best contribute to the team in any situation. And when you start to do that, you're going to see success in your life because you are contributing to a team in a way that people, even if you're making mistakes, they know that you're trying, that you're receptive to feedback, that you're making that effort. So keep that in the back of your mind.
Health, fitness, fat loss, sleep, all goals that are impacted by the fuel you put into your body. I've tried meal prepping at home, and I've tried multiple meal prep companies, including those that deliver, but I'll be honest, nothing has been better than the meals I get from Prepping with Peppers. They offer fresh, never frozen meals on a weekly rotating basis, so you don't have to get tired of eating the same meals over and over again. So save yourself some time for the things that matter most by ordering your meals at preppingwithpeppers.com.
And then probably my absolute favorite activity from camp was the Repel Tower. So we had a 55-foot wall that we all rappelled down. So you have on a harness, there's a rope, and you actually have your feet on a wall and you're kicking back and rappelling down from 55 feet up. First off, I always love rappelling. It's something I've done multiple times in the military. So it was not unfamiliar to me. But as each of the young men in my group came up, I would ask them, like, have they done it before? And I think there was only maybe one or two people that had. So the majority of my group, this was their first time having this experience and doing this. And I saw a lot of fear. Some of them physically were shaking as they were coming up and hooking up. And you could see the nervousness and the fear just in their face and the shakiness in their voice as they trembled and just really tried to focus on the safety that was connecting them to all the harnesses and listening to their direction. And then as he told them to step off the wall, they did. And they took the guidance and they lowered themselves down and they got to the bottom of the wall safely. To me, to see these young men take on a really difficult challenge, if you've never done it before, for the first time, to overcome the fear of the unknown, of what's going to happen, of heights, all of these fears that came into play, and to see them overcome that for the first time was an absolutely incredible experience. And so when we got to the bottom, once again, the question is, what'd you just do? And what did you learn from that? And so naturally, we had a conversation about fear. There was a person in our group who reached the top and they elected not to rappel down. There were other people who, were shaky and trembling and very verbally and physically noticeably scared. And they did it anyway, and they overcame it. And there were other people who came up looking and seemingly confident. They took direction and they went down, but all facing the same challenge and the same obstacle. So why was each person's experience different? Because we don't all respond the same way to fear or to unknown situations. And the really big takeaway is that we all experience fear. Every person in the group admitted to having uncertainty, to feeling fear as they went up, but they did it anyway. And so what we talked about is taking action in the face of fear. Because once you realize that everybody experiences fear, but you don't have to let it stop you or control you or prevent you from taking action. And then everybody who made it to the bottom felt a sense of accomplishment from doing it anyway. They felt better after doing it. Multiple people wanted to go again, right? But prior to that, very fearful of the unknown or of the heights or whatever it is. And so it was just a really good reminder in person. And we've talked about it many times on the show before that fear is always going to be one of those things that are in the way. Whether it's fear of the unknown or fear of taking on a new challenge or fear of failure. Fear comes in so many different varieties, but your ability to take action anyway, that is always still there. You get to choose how you respond in the face of the fear. And so that was just an incredible experience, getting to see those young men overcome that, to have that reminder of taking action regardless of if you're afraid or not in a situation was outstanding. And then finally, our last day culminated with a trip to the lake. And it was really just a great time. We spent some time relaxing on the water. So they had these things called corkles. It's kind of like a mini circular kayak made for one person to sit in, and you get a paddle so that you can paddle yourself in it. So just a small circular kayak is what I would call it, but they're called a corkle. And so we each had our own corkle with a paddle. And in the 2 hours that we had out on the lake, part of that time, several people just laid back and relaxed in the corkle, enjoyed the sun, enjoyed being on the water, and relaxed. Part of the time, we got out of our corkles. We started flipping other people out of their corkles, just kind of playing around and having fun. Some people started racing. We had some races. So really just a lot of different things, experiences, emotions while we were out on this just couple hours of hanging out on the lake. And so as we talked about it afterwards, at this point, we had already, had multiple deep conversations. There had been a lot of trust and camaraderie built up over the time that we had been at camp. And so we went straight to, some people were in their corkle and some people were in the water. And it was pointed out, it was a lot harder to do things or to help someone else if you were in the water versus being on your boat in the safe, dry, like floating space. If you're in the water, you had to keep yourself above water. So it was much more difficult to do things or to help other people. And so that was an incredible insight, is that we all have different seasons of life. We have, great seasons like our summertime, the sun is shining, everything's great. And I would relate that to the periods, where we were laid back, relaxing, just basking in the sun, enjoying the water, enjoying some peace in nature. But then you also have your cold periods and your challenging periods. And I would say that's when you're flipped off of your boat, you're in the water, you're boat has floated away and you're struggling to get back to it and it keeps moving, a more challenging and difficult time, right? But how do you look at each of those moments? What is your mentality? What's your mindset when you are underwater, when you're in the water, when you're struggling to get back to your boat? Now, we were having a great time, but also this time of the lake. And life, sometimes we go underwater, or we're struggling to keep our head afloat. And as bad as we want to still be able to try to help others, because maybe we find fulfillment in that place, we're struggling to keep our own selves above water. And so it was really a great reminder of the seasons of life, just understanding and really finding fulfillment in enjoying your good periods and your good season of life. Like, really appreciate and bask in that and find the gratitude. And when you're in one of those down periods, understand that you'll get back to a good period. It's just a season. And although when you're in that season, it's very difficult, and it's a challenge, and you just want it to be over. You want things to be better, and sometimes it takes time. Sometimes seasons are longer than we expect. I know that sometimes the snow comes when we think it's springtime, but it's snowing anyway. And so it was really just a good reminder to appreciate those good seasons, but understand that even in your bad seasons, more good things will come. Keep swimming. Keep yourself above water. Do the things that you know you need to do to stay afloat. Get back to your boat and get yourself back above water. And once you do, you get yourself back to a good season. And you find appreciation in the challenge that you face to get back to your boat. And so incredible, incredible lessons from camp. And the last thing that I'll leave you with is that as we departed, they say, this camp is just a piece of land. You can take camp with you. Make camp anywhere that you go in life. Look for the lessons and the things that you do. Look for the opportunity to, work as a team and communicate and continue to learn and challenge and focus on improving your mindset and the way that you look at things in life. And so I had an absolutely outstanding time at camp. I had to share all of those takeaways and lessons that are just absolutely beautiful to apply to your journey. So thank you once again for tuning in, allowing me to be a part of your journey. Please go like, subscribe, share, and comment with your thoughts and questions to join the conversation, and let's grow.